Hello, this is Mr. Foster here to give you a little screencast on the chemical basis of life, some important information that for most of you a lot of it's going to be review because you had Chem Phys last year, but something definitely important for our biology class as we move along and get further into macromolecules and stuff like that, chemistry, and having a basic understanding of it and its properties is real important. So go ahead and sit back, get out your biology comp book, make yourself a section maybe that you can put some notes in that might help you remember what you listened to and watched here. And you can always go back and watch this guy. This will be part one. Part two will deal more with just water, and water is a real important part of biology and life. This will also go along kind of with chapter two in our textbook. Okie doke. So let's get this thing rolling. The chemical basis of life. Put a few graphics in here I thought were interesting to kind of show that yes, chemistry is a big part of life, as it is everything around you, I guess you could say. You can see the big amount of elements that are in us right here, which we'll get into in a little bit. And this is your cell wall, or cell membrane, I should say, not a cell wall because we're not plants. But we have a cell membrane, and it's constructed of these phospholipids, which are then made of all those elements you see over here, carbon, oxygen, and all that. So without this, no cells. Without cells, no us. And the Bombardier beetle, he's a chemist himself, if I remember correctly. He's got two chemicals in here in his abdomen that when he wants to defend himself, he can mix up real quick, which makes a pretty, I guess it's pretty, not toxic, but hot material, I guess, burns that he could then spray out. So, interesting stuff. Nature has, nature does some interesting things there. Let's see, let's go on. So chemistry is the foundation of biology. You are chemistry. Yes, you are, definitely. Life requires roughly 25 chemical elements. About 25 elements are essential for life. 4 elements make up 96% of living matter. And let's see here. Let's get this. And we've got some others below. I'm going to get my pointer up, or my pen, I guess I should say. These are a couple of guys. This carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen, I'd probably put those down in your science notebook as ones that are real important to biology. You'll see these a lot. We'll be dealing with these a lot, especially when you get to macromolecules with proteins, carbohydrates, and all that good stuff. So remember those guys. COHN, kind of like con or something. But anyways, you also have this 4% right here, which is phosphorus, sulfur, calcium, and potassium. And you'll see those quite a bit too. All right, let's move on. Yes, indeed. What do we got here? Everything is made of matter. Matter is made of atoms. And this should definitely be some review, so I'm going to kind of move quickly through it. But you can always pause and go back if you need to. Remember this from Chem Phys? Protons, neutrons, and electrons. That's what makes up these atoms. Let's take a look. Yes. So here's your protons of helium atom. You got 2 of them in there and 2 neutrons. That's why it has a mass number of 4. And it's got its 2 electrons. So there's kind of a little Bohr model, I guess, as I remember it. And then over here we got a little bigger, larger mass here, 12, of a carbon atom, which is one that we see a lot in us, and a lot of organic material. 6 protons and 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. And that makes up your nucleus. And then these guys are spinning around out here in the electron cloud. And we'll get into this later, but it's those guys that cause a lot of the bonding that occurs in the chemical reactions. Okay, so hopefully that's a good review. Let's keep rolling, right? Rolling, rolling, rolling. Keep them doggies rolling. Oh, periodic table of elements. Yes, this is all the elements right here for the most part. Different kinds of atoms equal elements, yes, but we're going to kind of gray out all those. Not that they're not important, but you can see that these guys are the ones that we were talking about for biology, and where they're located, they're all kind of grouped together over here, and here for us in biology. And we may come back to this and talk about rows, columns, and what they mean as far as energy levels and stuff like that, valence electrons. Bonding properties, filling the shells. Atoms will fill outermost shell in order to become stable, matching negative electrons to positive protons. So yeah, this graphic I put in here because it's a nice little representation showing that, yeah, these energy levels basically can hold a certain amount of electrons. And the first one is 2, second one is going to be 8, and the third one will actually be 8. And so what these atoms try to do is try to fill these missing locations right here, or just fill the number of electrons at that energy level. And so hydrogen, you can see, needs 1 to fill it, so we can get 2. And this is real important because this really dictates how these things react. Carbon needs 1, 2, 3, 4. So how many valence electrons? 4 valence electrons. It's got 2 on the innermost energy level. And this one's 7, so we're going to see 3 valence, or not valence electrons, but it needs 3 electrons to fill the outer energy level, meaning that it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 valence electrons. Okay, and then oxygen, obviously, is going to have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 valence electrons, needing 2. Okay, so let's move on. We'll continue with the bonding. Let's see, effective electrons. And this is kind of continuation of what I was talking about. Electrons determine chemical behavior of the atom. So it depends on the number of electrons in atom's outermost shell. The valence electron, there it is again. Valence. So make sure you understand what valence is, because I'll talk about that a lot in class when we're talking about bonding, dehydration reactions, hydrolysis reactions. We'll get into that. But if you take a look at this guy over here, and he's got 2 here on the inside, and he's got his 6, and then he's got 6 again, so he's filled. So he's pretty stable there, like an inert gas, a noble gas. So how does this atom behave? Pretty good, like the atoms in class. Pretty good. No, I don't know if we even have any atoms in class. Anyhow, again over here I gave you a little rundown on number of electrons in each shell, which is something that you want to remember definitely. Alright, let's move. We're going along here. Bonding properties, effective electrons. Chemical behavior of an atom depends on the number of electrons in its outermost shell. Yes, the chemical behavior is definitely dictated by that. So in this case, it looks a lot like the other one, but it's missing 2 electrons. So what's he going to try to do? Obtain 2 somehow, sharing them most likely, which would be a covalent bond, which we'll get into in a minute. So how does he behave? Wants 2. And this guy over here, having 2, needs 2, 4, 6 to be stable. So he needs 6. So 2 and 6. I'm seeing there might be an attraction between these guys, that they could bond together and definitely help each other out to obtain outermost energy levels that are filled. Hence we get bonding properties. Elements in their valence shell. So in here we can look at elements in the same row have the same number of shells. So take a look there. Moving from left to right, each element has a sequential addition of electrons and protons. Notice that? So we keep moving across. What do you see? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So just counting these guys right out here. Alright, and that's how they're related in rows. Same with protons too, and the same thing down here. Elements in the same column, now we're talking columns up and down, at the same valence and similar chemical properties. So their chemical properties are very similar. So in this case, take a look over here. These are all the inert gases, noble gases. They have filled outer energy levels. Okay, and so the reason why this one only has 2 and this guy has 8 is because this is only filling the first energy level. And so that is actually filled energy, outer energy level, and same as this and same as this. So let's go to another example right there, and here are good examples too. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and remember what this column is called, the 7th column. Okay, so get that connection. And these guys are 7. This would be 1 less. 2, 4, 6. So we'd call this 7, and this would be, oh, that's a terrible 6. I slipped. There we go. Not the greatest writing, right? Hard to write with the mouse. Okay. Everybody getting that? Oh, one more over there. So there you go. 1, 1, 1. Needing 7 more. And this guy too is 2. So let's keep moving. And definitely write down any questions you have on this and bring it to class and ask me, because I will certainly do my best to help you understand better. Chemical reactivity. Atoms tend to complete a partially filled valence shell or empty a partially filled valence shell. So depending on how many valence electrons are going to go either way, fill or empty. This tendency drives chemical reactions and creates bonds. Yes, the good old chemical reactions. Here we got a couple diagrams we can take a look at that show the transfer of an electron to the other. Okay, that's a certain way that you can drive a chemical reaction, or the sharing. 2 different types of bonds going on here, which we'll get into, ionic and covalent. Mostly in biology we see these guys. Don't these look kind of like fried eggs on a Sunday morning to me? That's purple and that's blue, but wouldn't eat those, that wouldn't be good. Anyhow, definitely sharing electrons, and this is an actual transfer, so there's enough energy to pull this electron and put it over here. So let's continue. Bonds in biology. Strong bonds, covalent. That's the sharing one. Weak bonds would be hydrogen bonds, which we'll get into that a little bit later. That's actually dealing with water. And the hydrophobic and hydrophilic interactions, that goes back to the polarity of the water, which we'll talk about when we of the molecule, which we'll talk about more when we get into water. And you saw that on the cell membrane I showed you in the first slide, because there's polarity there that pushes those phospholipids together. Their hydrophobic and hydrophilic reaction to water causes them to form that way. So it's really fascinating. And then we got the ionic bond, which is a transfer of electrons. And these should be reviewed too from your Chem Phys also. Ionic bonding, here's a good example of that, which is the well-known sodium chloride, or the salt. And you can see here's your sodium atom and here's your chlorine atom. Take a look. This guy's got his 7 valence electrons and this guy's got his 1. Enough energy here to pull that electron off, transfer it. That's an ionic bond. So what causes the atoms to stay together? Well, the fact that they turn into ions. This is now a negative chloride ion right there, and this right here is now a positive sodium ion, and that difference in charge does what? Attracts them together. So it is true, opposites attract, for atoms anyways. You get your sodium chloride. So that's an ionic bond. Let's move on. Oh, I forgot my little picture there showing what basically the structure of all these sodium chlorines will form, because then they will all make their nice little cube lattice work there, and a picture of salt. Covalent bonds. Now this is one we'd see more often in biology. Why is this a strong bond? Well, because they're sharing the electrons, and they can share more than one. So 2 atoms share a pair of electrons, both atoms holding onto the electron, so they're both holding on. That keeps them together. No, don't let go. That forms the molecule. And there's our 2 fried eggs again, with the electrons right here. Okay, and this is what we get, hydrogen gas, because we got 2 hydrogens, each needing an electron. We'll share each other's electrons. That makes them both happy, because now they feel like they have 2 electrons, both filled at our energy level. So we get H2 gas. Woo! And we can represent that in writing with two H's and a line in the middle representing a single bond. If two lines are there, then that would mean a double bond. It means they have two more electrons, but not in this case. And we can even do triple bonds. And let's see what do we got here. Oh, water. Gotta have water for life. And notice here with the covalent bond that's going on, and we'll get more into water because it's got a specific type of bond called a polar covalent bond. But it's covalent because look what's happening here. Oxygen, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, needing 2 electrons. So they're going to share right here. This electron's coming from who? Hydrogen. This electron coming from who? Hydrogen. So they both will share their electrons here with the oxygen, which makes the oxygen happy. Yay, I'm happy. Yeah, kind of funky. And the hydrogens are now happy because they're each got 2. That fills their valence electrons. Because remember, they're only on the first energy level. They only need 2. Oxygen, it needs 8. The octet rule, they call it. Making oxygen, or I mean, sorry, not oxygen, water. Okay, H2O, dihydrogen oxide. It has some very interesting properties because of this bonding that goes on. We'll talk about it later how it's a polar molecule and what that does for life. It's important. Let's go on. Oh, can't forget that. And oh yes, I put in a little kind of a little stick model showing how we draw it. Anyhow, let's move on. Ew, sugar. There it is. That stuff that can rot your teeth if you eat too much of it. Sucrose, table sugar. That is a covalently bonded substance right there. That's why I put that in there. Let's see here. What do we got? Multiple covalent bonds. 2 atoms can share more than one pair of electrons. Yes, and I was talking about that earlier. You can share multiple electrons, causing double and triple bonds if they need to. Double bonds, 2 pairs of electrons, triple bonds, and you get very strong. When they're sharing 3, that's a pretty strong bond. Hard to break that up. So there's a single bond right here. You've got 2, 4, 5, 6, and then you got 2, 4, 5, 6. So they're sharing 2 electrons each, causing what? Double bond. So see how that's different than that one? Single bond, double bond. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. Here is water again with its single bonds going in this direction. And down here we have got what looks like methane, I believe. Single bonds all the way around. So you got 4 bonds around this guy. But if you look at it closely, it should satisfy everybody's valence electron need. In this case, 2, 4, 6, 8 for the inner atom, and then 2, 2, 2, and 2 for the hydrogens around the outside. Definitely. And this right here just shows how we could draw it with the letters and sticks. If we wanted to do this one up here with the oxygen, sharing the 2, then we could do, let's see if I can do this. Oxygen, double bonded to oxygen. There you go. That's what that would look like. And if you know your octet rule, then you would be able to figure out that this does work because atoms won't bond together if it doesn't fill their valence electrons. Okay? Oh, forgot about this guy. More is better. I forgot we put that in there. Very strong. More is better, so more bonds is better. Little pelican dude. Or not pelican, penguin. Polar covalent bonds, continued pair of electrons, shared unequally by 2 atoms. Water equals O plus H. Oxygen, stronger attraction. Oh yes. Here's where we get into a little bit of the water stuff here, which we'll go into more in depth. We might repeat this in the water one, but it's sometimes tough for students to understand this stuff about what a polar covalent bond is and how it works, but a very important concept, so something that you want to have down in your notes. Okay, and basically how this works is that the oxygen over here, because it's got a larger nucleus and it has more attraction pull to it, when it bonds with the hydrogens, okay, they call it, it has higher electronegativity, okay, something that's important, higher electronegativity, it tends to attract the electrons that are orbiting around the outside to this side of the whole molecule, the whole thing. And so what you end up getting is a negative charge on this side of the water molecule because there's more electrons. They're hanging out over here. It's a better place. I don't know, whatever, however you want to remember it. And the hydrogens over here kind of left in the dust there. They still get some activity from the electrons, but not as much as over here. And so they end up having a positive charge because they have protons, which are positive. Okay, and this guy's got protons in here too, but a lot of electrons are hanging out over here and orbiting this side. And so what's this cause? Well, this makes the whole molecule itself polar. In other words, you have a negative end, kind of like a battery, and a positive end. And this has a lot of interesting properties for water and interesting properties for life because it depends on these properties. And this little diagram up here just kind of shows how they would draw it, showing the positives here, the negatives here with the attraction going on here. Okay, so that's definitely something we'll get into with the water again. And did I continue with this? Polar water creates molecular attractions. Yeah, positive H atom in one H2O molecule attracts to a negative O in another. So it can occur wherever a OH exists in a larger molecule. And this is the hydrogen bond. It's a weak bond. Yeah, a little guy there squeaking again, isn't he? And so this weak attraction between water molecules because of that polarity is called hydrogen bonding. The hydrogens, because they're positive, are attracted to the oxygens because they're negative, and this is what causes water to have its very interesting properties. I mean, what makes liquid liquid in this case? Stick your hand in it, kind of moves and adjusts your hand, and then when you pull your hand out, it goes back together. So this is definitely how hydrogen bonds form. And we'll get into this more when we get into the water presentation. And that's the end of the chemical basis of life, part 1. Be sure to view part 2, chemical basis of life, the properties of water, which we'll get more into it because there's lots of interesting properties. Looks like I threw a couple little tables on here. Yeah, isotopes. There are different isotopes of certain atoms. Carbon 12, carbon 13, and carbon 14. So what makes them different? Well, there you go. Right there and right there. The neutrons, causing them to, there's carbon 14 if you add those guys, carbon 13 if you add protons and the neutrons. So those are isotopes. And then what's this? Oh, this is just another picture showing electron configurations and how we would draw the stick model with the letters, and that's a double bond like I showed you. There's C4 methane, there's water, how we would draw that, and the molecular formula. And I hope this was helpful.